My name's Patty Brown. I've lived here in Haines for 30 years now, but I came to Alaska for part-time work, for seasonal work in 1984. And so my first profession, I was a park ranger. That's what drew me to Alaska. And then I became a teacher because I wasn't having chances to experience kids as much, because the great park ranger jobs are far out in the wilderness and not as many people bring their children. So I taught school in Haines for 21 years here in Haines, and that's my home, and I can't really imagine living anywhere else full time. I admit that I go out now that I am retired, I go out for a couple of months in the winter for some light and drier hiking trails and such. Haines kind of, I guess, kind of politically speaking, reflects the division in the United States. There are people who have strong feelings one direction or another. And a little over a year ago, I was elected to the Planning Commission, and I'm surprised at things that people assign a political side to that don't seem political to me. So I worry that people settle into the division, and it doesn't seem like something to avoid. It seems like people would do better to seek common ground, and that goes for the whole country. We don't seem to do that. We seem to just want to say, oh, I am on this side of the fence on every issue, and I'm on this side of the fence for every issue. So we don't come together like we should. Haines is a place where lots of people participate in local government and speak up about things and show up for meetings. And so it wasn't that surprising to me that there was a faction ready to participate in these demonstrations against a government that has changed the way of doing business so radically. It's a big change in how things work. Not feeling like they need to follow the Constitution is a big dilemma, and whereas other people seem to give the current president a pass, whatever he decides must automatically be good for us, and that anybody else who disagrees with that is just not loyal and maybe even treasonous. But a lot of us feel differently. We are faithful to, we believe we should follow the Constitution or change the Constitution according to the rules. If there have been 27 amendments to the United States Constitution, so it's not like change can't occur, but it should not just change in the direction of the president, that the president is suddenly everything. And that's the root of the demonstration that was on last week on June 14th. We were part of the national pushback against acting as if one is a king. And so it was a small, probably the people who hand counted the attendees was around 200, though other people say, oh no, it was only 100. So I don't know why there is such a discrepancy, because you can count one by one. 200 is not a very big number to count up to. But it's big for our town. Our whole community is somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,000 people, and that's spread out 40 miles to the Canadian border and also about 10 miles in each of the other directions. So we're not a very packed population by any means. Lots of people live here who were born here and raised here, and they're on their second or third or fourth generation even. But there are people who have lived here even longer, thousands of years ago. There's native communities. Southeast Alaska, which Haines is part of, it's also called the Panhandle, is for the groups of people that the original dwellers in what is now Alaska. Life is harder in a lot of places than it is in Southeast. In Southeast, we're rich with forests and salmon and intertidal food and shorter winters, so that there's plants to eat readily also. So there's been a solid culture, Tlingit culture, for thousands of years. So Alaska hasn't been populated by non-Indigenous people for very long. Let's see. I think things that are challenging in Alaska now. Climate change is happening at a faster rate in the Arctic than it is anywhere else in the world. With the thawing of permafrost, the thawing of permafrost is threatening to infrastructure, even such as the pipeline, which was adapted to be, the construction was designed to be on frozen ground, and the pipeline is elevated to be able to make the oil going through the pipeline not thaw permafrost, but now with the atmosphere heating up, the permafrost is thawing anyway, so the pipeline is somewhat in danger. Coastal erosion is a big part of what's going on with the storms being bigger, so the waves are hammering against the shoreline more. The sea ice doesn't last as long as it used to, so hunting for seals for subsistence, for food, is not as easy as it was and not as safe. Wildfires are occurring more and more. They've always been a part of Alaska, but they are bigger and last longer and start earlier and extend later. So we're more and more reliant on firefighters from the lower 48, which is how we refer to continental United States. And in southeast Alaska, maybe you've had a chance to see it, we are experiencing landslides. We had one 5 years ago that killed 2 young people, and those are happening all down southeast Alaska for different reasons. We're studying on what slopes might be the riskiest. But in the slide that happened here, 250-year-old trees came down. So something is happening now that didn't used to happen 100 years ago. Avalanches have been common here for a long time because of the nature of the snowpack. The temperatures don't stay cold. Once winter comes, they don't necessarily stay cold. Warming up just above freezing can make the snowpack wet and become react differently to the slopes and to any kind of trigger that might be a goat or a skier or just new snowfall. So a slab of snow and ice comes down. So that's somewhat dangerous. It's expensive to get goods here that we can't grow ourselves. So that's a big challenge. So the additional expenses and adding tariffs to that is making it very difficult for people to be able to live in remote parts of Alaska. Many people rely on what's called Medicaid. It's health insurance that's offered to people in certain income levels, and 38% of Alaskans depend on Medicaid. So if there were to be this massive cutbacks that is penciled into the bill that's being considered by the U.S. Senate right now, if those were to take place, not only would it affect all those individuals and families that would no longer have health insurance, it would affect the facilities that provide medical care to everyone, and so we would have less access to medical care. So I don't think that's taken seriously by the lawmakers in Washington, D.C., in particular the people that always say yes to this administration's proposals. I understand from Anchorage that April 5th protest against the cuts that were being proposed and laid out was the biggest demonstration in the history of Anchorage. I'm not sure what the numbers were, but many, many people are uncomfortable with this. We have 2 senators, as U.S. senators, as does every state, and our 2 senators are different in their, I'll just say, unquestioning loyalty to this president. We have one senator that pays attention to a diverse population in Alaska, and another one that seems to only listen to one side. I'm not satisfied with the responses I get to the letters I write and the phone calls that I make with one of our senators. Senator Dan Sullivan and Senator Lisa Murkowski are our 2 senators. There is an interesting phenomenon in Alaska that more people vote in Alaska than live in Alaska that are eligible to vote. So in other words, there are a lot of people that live somewhere else but vote in Alaska. It's not illegal if they've lived in Alaska 30 days ever. All they have to commit to is that whenever they're away from Alaska, they intend to return, but that could be many, many years later. So as long as they keep voting by mail or by absentee, they still get to have an influence. Because Alaska's population is small compared to other states, and we still get 2 senators, basically your vote counts more. So I I have a suspicion that there are a lot of people who vote in Alaska and have different values than people who live year-round in Alaska. So basically, our representation is not accurate. Let's see what else. So we were happy that we had the attendance we had at the June 14th demonstration. We tried to keep it not from just being angry and sad, but activating people to say there are things. The beginning of our Constitution starts with the words, "We the people," and we are the people. So we have to speak up. It's up to us. If we're not happy with what our lawmakers are doing, then we have to tell them so, and we have to tell them what we want them to do instead. One critical piece that might seem very small, I mean, certainly compared to people losing medical care, it's not as big of a deal, but we rely a lot on our little radio station in our town, as do many, many small towns in Alaska. The small radio stations have been heavily reliant on federal subsidies, so using taxpayer dollars to have small radios, typically who subscribe to something called National Public Radio, and TV stations subscribe to a public broadcasting system. And so if there were to be the cuts, actually to provide no federal money for those radio stations, we would have no way to project to everyone in the community about disasters, emergencies, dangers, and we rely on it consistently. I honestly think one of the gifts of our public broadcasting, both NPR and the public broadcasting statewide, is it builds a bridge. There's something in those broadcasts for everybody. And although the rationale that's given for cutting all the funding to make these radio stations work is bias, I have yet to hear somebody explain, give me an example, explain how this is biased. Are you saying it's biased because something's not covered that should be? Or do you think untruths are being told? And I can't get either of my, I can't get the naysayers, the senator or the representative, to give me examples of that. So we aren't covered entirely by federal funding. Our community gives generously to our public radio station, and so we put broadcast basketball games. We have programs that even include children's voices. There's education about nature on the radio, and a wide selection of exposure to music and art, and so I think there's something in it for everybody. And honestly, I trust National Public Radio to be more truthful than the ones that rely on sponsors and commercials in order to stay viable. So I'd rather have people, the product they're selling is the truth. If I have doubts or have questions or something that seems opposite of what somebody else reported, I always look at multiple sources. But I find that many people who kind of are the opposite value system as me, get all their news from one place. Or they believe what's passed around on social media and don't question the source of that information. So it's a big deal. We feel like there's an attempt through this to eliminate a free press. That's critical. Our First Amendment, amendment to our Bill of Rights is free speech, the right to assemble, the right to go to our government and say what we don't like, the right to have any religion or no religion. You can express religion as you wish, and those things are in danger, and that concerns me greatly. I am an advocate for immigrant rights, and I believe that Congress has really let the American people down by not coming up with a system whereby it's a manageable number of people who can be let in, and they're treated humanely at every turn, because why not? Most of us our roots are from another country, and we were immigrants once. So I'm horrified, honestly, by the cruel treatment and the unidentified agents that are grabbing people off the street and treating them badly and sending them to countries they've never even been to, and to cruel prisons. And a lot of companies are making huge amounts of money off of flying people away from what's been their homeland for anywhere from 15 to 45 years. And a lot of companies are making huge amounts of money in detaining people in inhumane conditions. So this doesn't feel like the country I was born into 69 years ago. I alternate between optimism by the uprising of people, pushing back against the reforms that are bad for the economy and bad for the lives of Americans. I alternate between optimism and deep despair. I don't see a wall. I don't see a wall formed to say you can't do that, you can't cross this line, because our Supreme Court has seemed to stand up for the president, even though they posed themselves when they were all three of the recent appointees whose nominations were put forward by this president in his first term. Each one of those people claimed to be an originalist, and yet this president is breaking all the rules, or many of the rules in the Constitution, and they don't seem to be pushing back on that. So I feel incredibly deceived. Even though I was pessimistic in the beginning, now I'm horrified. I think people won't stop pushing back. I don't know exactly how we'll reclaim the power when I see ICE agents invading cities and governors being overrun, but I don't think people will stop speaking up. I don't think people will roll over, but I don't see a really clear avenue either. So I feel sort of mixed about that. I make several calls a week to my representatives. Many people I know do that also. There are a lot of people standing up in cities and asking their city governments to push back against this invasion by what appear to be untrained and unidentified people taking immigrants off the street. That's depressing. I feel like there's an avenue for people to take away individual rights for reproductive choices. I feel like for instance, I have my sister's middle child is an adult, is nearly 40 years old, and is transgender. And the idea that this president can say there is no such thing as transgender, it's like he's trying to erase the identity of many people. And I don't understand this. This is not something that hurts other people for someone to be transgender. The idea that, everything that matters the most is people who are taking hormones and trying to be their honest self of being female, and they were born with external parts that appear to be male, and saying that's the most important thing. That's what really matters, is who wins in sports. Makes me just feel like the values of this country are all about other people's personal choices and personal character and personal anatomy, and that's really sickening to me. Luckily, there are a lot of people that are in leadership positions in other states that are saying, no, a woman gets to decide whether she gives birth or not. A person gets to decide whether they present as they feel like their true self is female or their true self is male. And I don't know. I don't know exactly where that's going to go, but the hatred or ignorance, it's either way, it feels very wrong to me. So I guess I lean, if I didn't have some optimism, I wouldn't even make the phone calls. But I make the phone calls. I help with expressing ourselves as a group in town, and join and give money where I can to help people. The war that continues in Gaza, that's killing so many children, makes me sick. People that use the word right to life, I can't even listen to them. I have to walk away if they use that phrase, because right to life doesn't mean you get to choose whether a woman has a baby. Right to life is you take care of children that are born, and our country's not doing very well at that, and seeming to turn a blind eye at all the children that are dying from weapons that we provided to Israel. And I just don't understand how that's lost on some people, or they just look the other way. And yeah, this is not the America I was born into. I guess that's my biggest thing. But I won't stop pushing back, and neither will many, many millions of people. I am comforted somewhat after the election by, even though we had this president, more people did not choose him than did. And that's not even counting all the people that stayed home and didn't vote. More people did not choose this president than did, counting the people that voted for someone else besides Kamala Harris or Trump. And so most people oppose this president. And the idea that he declares he has a mandate to do what's called, execute all the elements of what's called Project 2025, so basically a lot of these decisions are being made by people we didn't elect at all. I believe Stephen Miller is an evil human being, and I rarely use that word, but he's the one behind a big amount of the hatred, in particular of people of color. I despair over the people that were chosen to be in this administration, to be in the cabinet, and even the young woman that speaks for him, Ms. Levitt, she has adopted the snide and snottiness that has been a trademark of Mr. Trump ever since he ran for office. So I heard her just say, "That's a stupid question. I never heard such a stupid question." That's not how grown-ups talk. So, yeah. And that is that there are a lot of people that are really opposed to the public land sales. So there's one of the riches of the United States is its public lands that can be used by many people for many different things. And the idea that we would sell off those public lands, and they're saying it's for affordable housing, but anybody who's ever seen a community near a national park or any large open space like wilderness or Forest Service land knows that it's the rich people that get to have houses near those places. They're not going to build apartments next to Rocky Mountain National Park. So I am glad so many people push back against public lands. It's something we all can have a share of. It's all of ours. And so the idea that they should be run by private landlords instead of collective residents of the United States is bad. So I hope we can preserve the public lands like parks, and for our ecosystem, for our health, for our mental health, for a savings account. So climate change is a real thing, and if we log all the forests, we're really doomed.